Philippines. Beyond its beaches and rich culture, here, people are digitally adept and early adopters of new innovations. This is all supported by world-class digital infrastructure. Here, across its more than 7,000 islands, making it the ideal digital market destination, the Philippines.
Hello everyone, my name is George Odagi and welcome to the Routing Security SIG. Before I start, I would like to ask you all to be mindful of the Code of Conduct, which is published on the APNIC 53 website and in the chat box. If you want to add a question, please type it in the chat box by starting with the word question, and we will read out your question when we have an appropriate time. Or please use the raised hand function in the Zoom to join the audio queue. Please use the Zoom chat for support with other questions about the event in general or issues with Zoom or anything else not related to the presentations. If you're uncertain of anything about APNIC 53, please visit the conference website for more information. You can also share a photo of you attending the conference on Twitter or Facebook using the hashtag APNIC53. Or there will also be some prizes to give away to the best selfies during the conference. Also check the program for time and information to join the daily quiz to win a prize. If you have any inquiries or questions unanswered during the APNIC 53 sessions, technical or non-technical, please email it to conference@apnic.net. All right, now that's out of the way, let's get the session started. I will pass you on to the chair, Aftab, to take over. Over to you, Aftab.
Thank you, George. Thank you for a quick rundown. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and if you are on the other side of the world, good evening. This is the Routing Security SIG, just in case if you are in the wrong room, just to remind everyone. My name is Aftab Siddiqui, and with me, I have my co-chairs, Afifa Abbas and Dr. Dima, who've been helping me from the very beginning. So thank you to the co-chairs. We have a very tight schedule. We will go ahead with our program, and we'll make sure that everybody is stick to the time slot they have been allocated. So first of all, I will let me just right. So let me invite Dr. Paige Zhang from Beijing University to do the presentation. So Dr. Paige Zhang, are you here? Yes, you are. So Dr. Zhang, the floor is yours if you want to start your presentation.
Okay, wait a moment.
So we can see your screen.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Over
Okay,
here.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be here to give this presentation. The topic is about internet routing outage. The subject of the presentation is detecting internet routing outage with topology and service analysis. My name is Zhang Pei. I come from Beijing University of Post and Telecommunication. Okay, let's see the picture on the right. The internet is interdependent. Application delivery is dependent on many internet service providers. CDN/DNS public cloud work together to provide additional experience. Well, an outage can happen anytime, anywhere. There are many types of outage, such as HRP outage, cloud outage, or transit key point outage. The reason is varied, like natural disaster, misconfiguration, network attacks, or route overload also can lead to the outage. The outage can affect people's normal life, such as payment. Organization will lose revenue, even take an entire network offline. So from the media report, we can see last year, every month, having 1 or 2 outage events. In October last year, there are 2 large-scale internet routing outage. From this table, at least 3 large-scale internet routing outage this year, like Facebook outage, KT outage, and Sibling outage. From the table, we can see that the duration lasts long from 40 minutes to 7 hours, and the impacts is very serious. Some important application like when down, we can pay anything on internet, and the global web traffic dropped 3.5%. Okay, what's happening during the Facebook outage event? For the picture on the right, we can see AS32934 PGP withdrawal and announcement updates storage, and Facebook DNS name server prefix were withdrawn by many AS and some other important applications in the down. From the picture, we can see the point profile lasts 20 minutes, and well, it takes 6 hours to recover. It's very serious. And I also merged the IP Archer top 30 website DNS name server IP. The server IP I merged from 5 servers around the world on October last year, and I created the IP by prefix X. From the picture, we can see that many famous websites, their name server located in one AS. I think it's very dangerous. Like the Facebook example. Okay, what we learned from these outage events? I think there's 3 domains. Firstly, BGP and DNS are critical infrastructure of the network. Any conversion should be strictly audited and validated. And we also need some IP database for route filtering. And secondly, is the critical network infrastructure such as a DNS name, and the critical service should have a backup mechanism that should not all in place in single prefix or AS. The third one is the BGP anomaly monitoring system should not only focus on the false possibility. And when anomaly detected, we should know whether the prefix or AS contains some important service. So this is our BGP outage detection architecture. It's very simple. We maintain real-time global topology in memory and checking the visibility of the prefix and AS in advantage routing table. Then observe whether this outage prefix contains some sensitive service, whether this outage AS have aggregation in the concrete topology. So what APRICOT and AS are sensitive? I think the APRICOT country's top websites in DNS server and top router, industrial system, and the finance, banking, energy, government websites. We should collect some information to build a database. What APRICOT sensitive? AS, such as the IDC Cloud, HRP, they own their own AS. We should take more attention to this asset. And another question is how to build this database. So we can crawling, probing, and analyzing from the information from the internet. Firstly, we can crawl important websites that their IP address and content analysis the type of the site based on the content. So we can make a IP service mapping, whether some service work on this IP. We can also probe and get DNS server IP rights of important websites. We can also raise the common service ports from the passive network traffic or scan the whole IP address space. The data we use to build the database. When there is an outage, we can see whether the prefix have sensitive information. Okay, the second question is how we can outage detection correctly. From picture on the right, on the left, the black line shows the true anomaly in one country. But if we only use the outage prefix number as the feature, we can not distinguish the outage correctly. But if we use some information with topology, such as Marshall connect subgraph, we can distinguish the anomaly clearly. Like this on the right feature, the black line, we can distinguish them very clear. Okay, the final question is how we locating the root cause of the large scale outage. In our architecture, I see this picture. We found some outage AS side and outage prefix side. From the service, we will check whether the prefix contains some sensitive service. For the outage AS side, we will analyze the topology every 5 minutes. If the AS aggregation in one country's topology, we can locate the root cause. For example, from the picture shows some outage happened last year, October. The outage AS in country 1 and country 2 are collected respectively with topology analysis. It can be seen that outage AS in C1 is very scattered, where the outage AS in C2 shows obvious aggregation phenomena. The central ASN has a very large degree centrality, and it's the root cause of this called outage. Okay, this is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pei, for your presentation. That was really very quick. I have one quick question in terms of outage detection. So you are doing it only from your own network vantage point, or you are collecting data from multiple vantage points as well?
Because as for study, I use the vantage point collector, use the RPRICE view. I collect the rep files and update the files, download, and not real time. But in my university, I collect, I deployed one vantage point with our network.
So these vantage points are, of course, you're taking it from route views, and other vantage points are within Beijing, or I would say within China.
Beijing, Sunlight. The vantage point is Sunlight. Yes. Okay.
And do you publish the outages in real time in any public interface or public web page, or it is for your internal consumption at the moment? Do you publish the result of these outages publicly, or
it's just for the study? Okay. We will publish the service to the website. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Any other question? If no, then I would say thank you so much, Dr. Pei, for your presentation, and hopefully you will, if it is possible, maybe create a web page so that people can find out what is happening. As you know, that bgpstream.com also publishes the outages information. Maybe it's a good idea to have a second service publicly available, which people can use. So yes, since you have the algorithm is working fine, so why not just create it and make sure that it is available for public use?
Okay, I know the Bgpstream. I think there are many outage events in the website. I think the important is whether the outage is sensitive, whether the outage prefix contains some important service. So this is some changes. Okay.
Yeah. So one question came out, and it's a very good one, that the route views collector is the viewpoint of my, for example, if I am one of the peer to the route views or any route collector, what I do, I usually, the collectors say that please send all the information without filtering. That means it will give you a lot of information which might not be true. Number one, if a network is connected to me and for some reason I stopped announcing that information to you, you might consider that as an outage, right? So do you verify the outage to X number of peers that, okay, this is an absolute outage because it happened from XYZ number of peers, or how do you ensure the collection of data is accurate? Dr. Zhang, do you understand the question?
Do you mean how to verify the,
yes,
the outage? Okay. I think there are many outage there. I improve the level, the sensitive level, high, middle, low. Sometimes I don't judge whether the outage is true, but if the prefix contains some important sensitive information, I improve the level, outage level to a high level.
Okay, so, but again, I would say maybe if you make this information public, that would be really very interesting for a lot of people to view what is happening on the internet, and maybe we can correlate that how accurate the data is. So again, my request to you is make sure that this is publicly available. And thank you so much for your efforts. Hopefully we'll see you next time with a public page. So on that note, okay, we have Anupam. Anupam, you have a question? Quick one. Anupam, you want to ask any question?
Yes, Aftab, this is Anupam. So thanks for giving this quick time. So based on your question, this mapping of outage from different vantage points is the basic minimum before any outage is called for? And is there any number of vantage points which you have in mind that it should be from 3 or 4 or 7 or 8? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Dr. Zhang, do you want to elaborate on this? I mean, my point of view is more are better, but yeah. So let's see if Dr. Zhang had any point of view. Okay, so maybe we can take this on the chat, because I've just been told that we're running out of time. Anupam, very good point. I'll make sure that we get a good clarification from Dr. Zhang as well. I'll hand it over to Afifa to take it from here for the next part of the session. Afifa, over to you.
Thank you, Aftab bhai. Hello, everyone. Moving forward with the session. Next, I would like to invite on this virtual stage of APNIC 53, Terence Switzer from IO Networks, and he will be speaking on RPKI status in New Zealand and Australia.
Thank you, Afifa. Yeah, so I'll just see if I can move that over there. The problem with having 3 screens, things go to random screens. Okay, that's better. So again, this is another report that I've had the privilege to write on behalf of the Internet Society. And again, thank you to AFTAB for allowing me to do this work on behalf of the community. It's always worthwhile. So essentially, why would one want to look at the status of RPKI in this particular context? So we obviously, from Dr. Zhang's presentation and from recent events around the world, we might as well start considering our internet operations as critical infrastructure. And even as we speak, the Australian Parliament's finalised a new piece of legislation which actually makes the internet data processing, i.e. cloud and data centres and other elements of the internet critical infrastructure, which also gives them intervention powers too, which some Australians are concerned about. Routing security, yeah, it's as old as BGP, and of course this is the forum for us to talk about routing security in general. We do know that these incidents are happening because of mistakes. They're also bad actors who are doing things with routing announcements that we don't want them to be doing. And essentially, the project that we've done this time around is to examine what the penetration of other networks would look like from invalid ROV space. So we were fortunate enough to have an exhaustive AUNZ domain list, and we also, courtesy of AFTAB, threw in the PK domains as well, in order to give us basically a control set as to what we were doing. So over, I think last quarter, we collected well over 2 million trace routes. And this time around, we've actually made a record of every hop and every ASN and every IP address that these trace routes have also passed through from both of our sources. So as I said, this is about government and critical infrastructure. So we narrowed our search of various domains to very specific government-based and education-based domains. Methodology is very simple. If you want to generate reasonably easy data to analyze, then you come up with a very simple methodology. So we take our 1 million domains and we find out what A records they've got attached to them for either their bare record or for their www prefix. And then we attempt to connect to them via either the valid address space, or in this case, purposely invalid ROA address space. That is, one of our tests comes from something that should not be accepted and should not be present in the global routing table under the ideal conditions. And of course, there's also the case where some domains provided no DNS glue whatsoever to an A record. We skipped V6 because we were only actually using V4 records with invalid ROAs on them anyway. So what did we start seeing? Well, one thing that was rather distressing, there are an extremely large number of networks out there that are completely and totally porous to ROV invalids. We were also surprised and glad to see that there were a small minority of networks completely rejecting that traffic. And also very, very strangely, and probably to the shock and horror of anyone who's involved with manners, we were getting a lot of traffic coming back from bogons in the trace routes as well. So we were seeing 192.168 and 10.10.1 things in trace routes all over the place. But obviously the notables here, 14618, Cloudflare, Microsoft, these were the networks which proved to be completely and totally resistant to us sending them traffic from an invalid ROV, which is very heartening to see. Now, we tried going through nearly every single government website we could. Obviously, we've generated 2 million records to play with, but I thought I'd give you a case study. And of course, I live in Queensland, and qld.gov.au is the main Queensland government portal. And the first thing we noticed about it is from our test rig in Sydney, we were able to connect to the 2 IP addresses that were supposedly their web front end from both the invalid and valid sources. So in this case, we have a website which is completely porous to connectivity from invalid ROV sources, which is not good. Consequently, when doing a bit of a fold-in of ROV data for the destinations, it was odd that I was getting an AS0 out of Atlas. And I thought this might be just poor public data, because the actual ROA record for the destination is quite valid. In fact, it's on ASN 38195, which is Superloop, a well-known ISP here in Brisbane and also Australia. And this shouldn't have been an issue. The issue was actually the Atlas data. So oddly, in this case, whoever is running the portal, the front end for this particular site, has decided they don't want anyone connecting to it unless they happen to come in from an Australian IP address. So it's a little bit of security via obscurity. They're letting every invalid ROV in, providing it's in Australia. So a very, very odd circumstance, in my opinion. And of course, just going to Atlas and doing a quick trace route through many, many different sites around the world, it became very obvious that none of these traces were succeeding from outside the country. And you're welcome to go and look at the probe data. So I've left the URL there for you. So in summary, what have we found? There are still a large number of networks which are allowing traffic to happen from or between invalid ROA networks, which is disturbing. What obviously is possibly happening is even if they are dropping the routes at their border because the ROA fails, they're still accepting the traffic. So there may be a black hole policy that they've missed out on doing. As usual, and myself and other people like Jeff Houston, we always complain about the veracity of public data, whether it's geolocation or some other problem, it's always an issue. And of course, we're raising some questions here. Are we really wanting to keep policies in place like hot potato routing, where we don't have the route in our table, we'll just push it off to a default route somewhere? Or if it's over an exchange, but it's not really supposed to be there, but we just simply drop it into the right funnel and off it goes anyway. So hot potato might not be the best policy. And of course, BCP 38. Why aren't people filtering their outbound traffic? Why are we seeing 10 dot addresses in trace routes? Why are we seeing 192.168 in trace routes? Why are people using connectivity between ASNs in that address space as well? It's bizarre, and maybe again we should be educating people on not doing that with live public networks. And of course, big question is, if you're a multi-homed client and you have the capability of consuming on your borders a full table, why would you accept the default route? You may want to propagate a default route within your own ASN and cut down your fib sizes, as Jeff has recommended in his talk the other day. But at your borders, you really want to make sure you have a policy in place that rejects traffic which is obviously from an invalid source. And as we've seen in the data, there are minority networks now in operation which take that invalid traffic and just throw it away, which is great security. Now, questions, anyone?
Any questions? Well, I don't see any question for you right now, Terence.
I'm happy to take them on notice, or you can send them via conference@apnic.net.
Yeah. Thank you, Terence, for your presentation. I think, okay, there is one question from Paul.
Okay, I don't see a question from Paul there.
Isn't it? Oh, yeah, I think he raised his hand.
Oh, okay. We'll definitely talk, please.
Hi, Terry. Paul Wilson here. Thanks a lot for that presentation. I was just, something that wasn't quite clear to me was to what extent you were distinguishing between the holder of the domain name registration, like the Queensland government in the case that you mentioned, and the people who are actually technically operating the site for them. I think you might have said that that site was operated by Superloop. I'm not sure.
Well,
but I'm not sure whether
the IP address range is actually routed via Superloop's ASN, but it may be another operation.
Right.
I've tried not to make the distinction. I've gone with public data. I don't know who actually runs the site for the Queensland government, but we do know because of public routing data that it is routed by Superloop.
And so you're sort of keying this data mostly according to the domain name holder, or the
no, purely by the A records and routing table entries.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Interesting. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Paul, for your question. Would like to move on to our next speaker. Dee, would you like to introduce our third for this session? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The next presenter is Shizong Zhang, who is the CTO of NNIX, the first official IXP in China. He plays a very important role in network construction and product development since NNIX was founded. And since the inception of NNIX, he and his team have been working intensively on BGP security, such as RPKI and many others. So let's hear from him with more than exchange NNIX practice in routing security. Now I'm handing over to you, Shizong.
Thank you, Dr. Dimar. And good morning, APTAB and FIFA. Hello, everyone. I'm Shizong Zhang from NNIX, the first IXP of China. Today, my topic is more than exchange NNIX practice in routing security. I'd like to introduce the new infrastructure of China in 2021. In the past year, in order to promote the digital economy, Chinese government has attached great importance to the digital infrastructure, including 4 IXPs and 8 integrated data center clusters, on top of which is computing schedule network designed to balance cloud industry development by taking advantages of the low energy consumption in the West and the high cabinet demand in the East. And what we do in the past year, our efforts is connect more clouds, encourage more participants, and bring more conveniences. About more clouds, we connect 5 public clouds and provide 2 cloud access solutions for our customers. And the API is available. The 2 solutions is VPC tunnel and VPN tunnel. In VPC tunnel, it's based on direct connection transmissions. It can provide dedicated tunnels to access VPC ports. In VPC tunnel, it's based on peering transmissions, and we use shared tunnels and the VCPEs to provide EIP ports. About the participants, the customers has increased from 33 to 81, and the peak traffic is up to nearly 600 gigabits per second. And about the conveniences, we work hard to develop virtualization system in the past year, and we developed 3 virtualization elements, including vPort, vSwitch, and vRouter. Based on the physical access, customers can use these 3 virtual elements to connect to each other all by themselves. And we did practice routing security in 3 ways, including joining manners, implement local trust anchor, and develop hijack and root leak detection system. It's an overview of joining manners. We take 5 actions to meet manners demand, including prevent, promote, protect, coordinate, and tools. About the RPKI and the whitelist features. RPKI, the root servers establish RPKI sessions with the RPKI server, which synchronizes the data from the global database under the guidance of Dr. Dima. Thank you, Dr. Dima. And about the whitelist filters, participants provide AS and IP and show the certification offered by NIR. A whitelist will be automatically generated by image identification to allow the IP address broadcast into UNIX if it was matched. And we implement local trust anchor. Why? Because for customers that did not make a signature for their IP and ASN, which is quite common in China, such as some customers use IP addresses assigned by telecom operators, so they will not signate their IP. And we correct the database according to certifications provided by customers as the highest judgment level. And the third, the customers prefer to trust us. How to do it? Given some authentication mechanism for INR custodianship by IXP participants, we synchronize the information of each participant with our system, including the name, ASN, IP address, and so on, forming a local database, and generate local assertions in alignment with SLUM file as specified in RFC 8416. That's the result. The valid root in the routing table of UNIX has increased from 19% to 99%. At last, let me introduce the hijack and the root leak detection system. We have been researching this system since the last year to monitor the abnormal events as it was reported at APRICOT 52 peering forum last year. Now we have conquered 2 key algorithms which will promote the identification accuracy. One is commercial relations identification algorithm, and the other is sibling relationships identification algorithm. About the commercial relationships identification algorithm, we have 3 stages to finish the algorithm. One is principal inference. We use tier 1 AS degree from CAIDA database, AS rank database, and Wikipedia. And based on value-free principle, we get the inferred relationship. And the second is probability judgment. If the inferred relationship of the same AS pair in different paths were inconsistent, the right answer will be determined according to the appearance probability, and the probability is adjustable. The third is final inference. According to the results inferred in stages 1 and 2, we use them to determine relationships. We use the determined relationships to conclude the uncertain ones. And in the picture, we can see that in this experiment with thousands of data, our algorithm proves to get higher accuracy than the Gao algorithm. The accuracy is nearly 96%. And the Gao algorithm is around 91%. At last was a sibling relationships identification algorithm. We use AI model to handle this problem. At first, we extract filters from routing data, and we use train ensembles learning, XGBoost. And at second, we conclude the most important filter. We use this formula, and the result should be the most important as a rank of longitude, rank, latitude, sibling, and the call number addresses, and the relative distance, and the call number prefixes. And we can see the result from the picture. The accuracy of this algorithm on the training set is close to 99%, while the accuracy on the test set is close to 97%, both of which have good performance. And if we use 50% of the filter, or if we use 25% of the filter, and we can both get a relative high accuracy, that means it can be used to get a good performance with less data to save the storage space. Thank you, that's all. That's our new domain name, rx.cn. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, Shizong, thank you for your presentation and your efforts in promoting the internet routing security. And does anybody have any question for Shizong Zhang?
So D, if please allow me to ask something to Mr. Zhang. It's like it's really
Sure.
very interesting. The accuracy rate is really very high. I mean, I'm very much surprised with that. I just want to understand, are you actually implementing this in NNIX, or are you planning to make it available to the general IX infrastructure?
It's not a system implemented on the root equipment. It's just a system developed by us. It's like the software, and we have now already implemented it in our system, and we are going to share the database to the internet by open API, but it's still under experimental, and it is still we still need much time to finish it.
Okay, that is I mean, really wonderful if you can open up through API access. I'm very much sure that many IXs will be happily take that API access and try to implement something, because that's still a big question mark in terms of route leaks. There are certain options where hijack, of course, misorigination is easy to catch, but leak is still type 0 ones are still a very big question mark, and how do you detect them? So that would be really very interesting. I mean, I hope some folks on this session are listening quite eagerly to get something from your side. Thank you so much.
And
Thank you so much.
we're going to finish it this year. Okay. We'll finish it this year. Thank you.
Perfect. So moving ahead, so far we are good with the time. Thank you so much to Mrs. Zhang. I will now call our very own Tom Harrison from APNIC. You there, Tom?
Yep. There, so.
Hey, I can't see you somehow. Now I can. Yes.
Good.
Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, everybody can see that.
Yep, loud and clear, and the presentation is there as well.
Okay, great. Hi, my name's Tom Harrison. I'm the Registry Product Manager at APNIC, and today I'll be talking about a few work items that the APNIC Registry team has in 2022 that relate to routing security. So the first one is ROA preservation during transfers. Our systems today are such that we're not able to maintain ROA state when a transfer occurs. The core registry system itself handles the transfer transactionally, but the RPKI system that we have operates at one step removed from that core registry system. And that, in combination with a couple of other things, means that it sees a gap in control of the resources, and it's not able to maintain the ROA across that gap. This causes problems for some accounts who balk at the idea of having to delete ROA state in order to make the transfer happen. They worry that it might cause problems with their announcements and so on. And we sometimes have to come up with ad hoc solutions to allay their concerns in that space. So we will update our RPKI system to support maintaining that ROA state, probably by having it participate in that core transaction. The next item is route management pre-validation. So today in APNIC, we don't validate the changes that people are going to make in route management with respect to BGP state. And what this means is that people sometimes break their announcements, cause themselves reachability issues by creating an incorrect ROA or something like that. This is bad enough in the case where the effect is felt immediately, but in that sort of situation, they can at least realize that it's their change that caused the problem and go and fix it. The worst case is where somebody creates a ROA and then some time later, their upstream decides to turn on origin validation, because instead of realizing that's their problem to fix, they assume that it's something to do with what the upstream has done. And this can lead to confusion all around. So what we'll do is have route management pre-validate those changes and warn users if those changes will cause problems. And hopefully this should go some way to mitigating the issues we see here. And the third item is a registry API. So an API for managing registry records, supporting retrieving delegation information, create, update, delete whois records, manage reverse DNS rows, and route management routes as well. The draft specification for that is available at the first link on this slide, and also a public testbed. If you want to try the testbed out, you'll need to be set up with an account. So if you would like to do that, then please email software@apnic.net and we'll set that up for you. And you don't need to be an APNIC account holder to try it out. So yeah, that's open to anybody who's interested. And that's all. Thank you.
Oh, that was really very quick. So, but I won't let you go easily. Couple of questions, Tom. So the first step you mentioned that the keeping the ROA state. So just to clarify, is this for intra-RIR transfer only?
Yes, yeah, intra-RIR transfer. This would be considerably more complicated for inter-RIR transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was surprised at how you got to transfer the state to another RIR.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. And the second one is the second thing you are implementing is the BGP state matching the ROA state. What timeline did you mention that when it will be available?
We're working on it at the moment, so we're planning to have that done by the end of Q2.
Oh, that's quick. Perfect. That's perfect. Any other questions from anyone?
Just on that first question, just one other aspect there is to do it transactionally between RIRs, that would be quite tricky. But because each RIR system is independent, in terms of actually having the first ROA exist and then the second ROA exist in the recipient RIR system, that wouldn't be so complicated. We could do that fairly easily. But that's kind of a separate thing, I think.
Okay, and I don't think so that people are requesting for that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because within the APNIC, it's kind of hard that, okay, I need to delete the ROA so that you can create another one. But in an inter-RIR, I think people do get it. but maybe at some point we might get a request that's saying we need an inter-RIR state validation as well. But anyway, this is perfect. And how you are entertaining the API queries? Is it just go to that link and register somewhere, or we can just use it?
Oh no, you have to look at the draft specification. That's fine. Anybody can do that. To get access to it, though, you need to email software@apnic.net to be set up with an account.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All good. Amazing. Registry is improving day by day. Thank you so much for all the efforts, Tom. But stay with us because there are, oh, Paul has a hand up. Paul, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Tom, for that. I just thought it was worth mentioning that there was more discussion about the API developments in the products and services SIG yesterday. So if in that session yesterday, so if anyone missed that and was interested to know more, then there was more discussed then, and it'll be on the web archive. Thanks.
Yeah, good point, Paul. Thank you for that. There is one question saying, will there be an ability to create sub-allocation less than /24 via the APIs?
Because the API will give general access to whois, it's possible to create assignments that are smaller than 24. Whether those are actually routable is something else, but yeah, I think it's perfectly possible to make them in the same way that you could make them in my APNIC today via whois. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So legally we have 8 minutes remaining. So I will hand it over to Afifa. Thank you so much, Tom, for that. I'll hand over to Afifa for some quick open questions for the community, and over to Afifa. She'll handle that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aftab Bhai. So we are, as Aftab Bhai mentioned, we are left with 8 minutes. I will just try to go quickly. So I'll be leading the open discussion from here. So there are a few discussions that have been coming up in our routing SIG forum, and I'm sure the community would be interested to know. So I would like to ask the first question to Dee, and that is, as we are experiencing the RPKI deployment is having the upward trend, and there is a possibility that for the better flexibility and better control, many operators may choose to use delegated CA or delegated RPKI. So what are the basic standards all delegated CA should maintain, and how do we measure that? Dee, if you were...
Hi, Afifa. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you are proposing a very good question. So far, as we all know, there is no such requirement for the delegated RPKI operator from the community. But I do think it's worthwhile, because as my team maintain RP systems fetching RPKI data periodically, we realize IPv6 access is necessary when an RP works on the IPv6 network. As you know, our community have been working on IPv6 promotion for decades. So since we are going to a IPv6 pure world, we do well, we need to emphasize the importance of IPv6 access to the repository. So I'm therefore thinking about whether a policy or guideline is worthwhile to mandate a delegated RPKI repository to offer both IPv4 and IPv6 access. And I can't help but see the parallel that I can make it mandatory that a new generic top-level domain operator, such as .xyz operator, must provide IPv6 address-based server access by publishing a policy called Registry Agreement. So maybe we can do the similar thing. But I also realize it's kind of difficult to make this constraint, since it's not satisfactory to just to revoke something, to revoke a CA status. So, well, granted, I think it's necessary to have a checklist as a guideline, maybe not a policy for a self-hosted CA operator to follow. So I just to throw the question to the public, and maybe we can have some. I just want to take this opportunity to receive some feedback from the community and to move on the discussion in our APNIC community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on Dee's reply regarding from the audience? I think Paul made a comment in the chat that do panelists or community members have any comments or questions about it, or is it being used by many or any people?
Yeah, Paul, that's a good point. On the AS0 ROA, I think it's maybe it's more than a year now, and there are two other RIRs who are implementing AS0. So maybe a good time to have a survey asking operators if they are implementing it. And second point would be asking the Secretariat that how many hits they are getting for the AS0 ROA tell. So maybe a good understanding, and that's a good point, Paul. Maybe we should raise it as part of the mailing list discussion. And I have another question for the APNIC Secretariat, if anyone is around. If I apply for a delegated RPKI CA, so do I have to agree with certain terms and condition, and is there any SLA agreement, or it is just go ahead, do it, you are on your own?
I think I can take that. We don't have any terms and conditions for delegated RPKI today, but we're looking hard. We'll be looking harder this year just because of some issues we're seeing with maintenance of systems, and probably lots of people are seeing with maintenance of systems and etc. So yeah, basically we'll be looking at it and hope to have something sorted out this year.
Okay. I mean, any form of maybe a disclaimer would be a good idea, or a form where people say, yep, TNC, people will agree to it, but at least there's something there to know that this is what they signed up for. Yeah, perfect. Thanks. FIFA.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question, and that is something I would like to highlight, that recently from Routing Security SIG, we have conducted on survey, I think 2 months back, and we got a pretty good response. So according to the survey, we saw that a good support for opt-in RUA notification via email or webhook. So what measures does the APNIC Secretariat take to implement this feature? So this question is basically for APNIC Secretariat. If Tom or anybody would like to attend this.
Yeah, one thing that we weren't certain of was whether people were across the context for that. So the reason we send the notification, so just in case, it may be that people are, but just in case, the reason that we send the notifications for route objects and not rows is that before we were doing the route management stuff, people needed to have the authorization of both the prefix holder and the ASN holder in order to make a route object. That was inconvenient for obvious reasons. And it was really the prefix holders, I suppose, authorization that mattered the most. So what we ended up doing was just requiring their authorization and then notifying the AS holder. Because we didn't have, I don't think, any sort of formal policy announcement about that change in authorization requirements, we continued with sending the notification for the Whois route object. But because there's no requirement or expectation for that with ROAs, we didn't do it for ROAs. So we can do it for ROAs. We just wanted to make sure that people understood that there was a reason why those two systems were dealt with separately.
So Tom, if there is a requirement from the community, would there be any possibility that APNIC secretary would assist us on this?
Yeah. It's not so much that we can't do it. We definitely can add something like that. It was purely that we wanted to make sure that people were across the context. And really, I should have followed this up a bit earlier than now, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment on this? Probably no. So I think we are already.
If I may ask one quick one, I know that we are running out of time, but Tom, just to clarify on this one, for any feature development for the WHOIS or the registry services, is there any requirement from the APNIC side that there should be a clear policy, or it can be done in a just requesting APNIC Secretariat and clarifying it and then putting it there in the roadmap? Or there has to be a policy which clarify. I mean, the reason for the policy is it literally clarifies the exact wordings, what will be the outcome, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and people agree or not to that. I mean, we don't have to go to the maybe consensus process, but requesting a feature should be in a format which is understandable to the APNIC Secretariat or the registry services team, I would say. Is it something you would like to consider, or the loose infrastructure we have where communicate with each other and work it out is much better?
I'm not 100% sure of the parameters, whether something should go to policy or can just be something informal that happens in a SIG. Yeah, so I might have to defer to somebody like Sunny on that point. We can definitely look at ways to formalize, perhaps along the lines of what Aaron has, where people put in not so much policy ideas, but basically work suggestions in order to make it clearer how these things are getting onto the roadmap. If people are interested in that, yeah, we can definitely look at that.
Or maybe just like a GitHub issue request or a feature request where people can upvote or downvote if something is not worthy of services team time. That would be an interesting idea as well. I mean, just to solve one problem, creating another would be a bad one. But just saying, if there is a possibility where people can say, okay, this is the feature I really would like to have, but 10,000 members say, no, we don't like it. So it's no point for the APNIC services team to spend so much efforts on it, because that's resources. So, I mean, it's just a request and a question. Maybe if you can come up with something, that would be great. Otherwise, we will keep on this loose method where we can discuss it with you guys all the time. So that's all. I'm not going to say anything, Afifa.
Okay, so should we go for the last one, or should we just wrap it up?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I will just take one more minute. And the discussion that also have been going within the chairs of routing security SIG, that the request that such the RUA notification and any other request which comes from routing security SIG, we do not want it to get confined within discussion and within the surveilling. So our question was, does it require the policy support, and how these requests can be?
So Afifa, I think this one, Tom did highlight a few points on that one. So maybe what we will do as the chairs of this SIG, we will write a summary and back to the mailing list, making sure that everyone is aware of what the next steps are. And Tom, if you think that is not the best use of services team's time, or something else is a better solution, let's come up with that one. Anything which can work for both of us, as what we discussed, can go hand in hand. So that is very good. I'll take a note. So thank you so much, Afifa, for that. So Afifa, can I just wrap up?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a conference poll in front of you right now. Please don't forget to vote, and please provide your feedback so that we can improve as much as possible. As a comment we received from Tashi, we did it in the last time. We will summarize the discussion we had today and make sure that we post it on the routing security mailing list. But that's a good point. We will share it we'll cross-post it to the other mailing list just to make sure that everyone is aware of that. That's a good point. We haven't shared it on the other NOG or Ops mailing list, but I think when we are requesting for the features which impact everyone, it's a good idea to share it with everyone. Tashi, this is very well noted. We will get back to the chair's discussion and do something. So on that note, thank you, everyone. Again, thank you so much to Dee and Afifa for making this possible. And until next time, we will do another short standalone session at the end of April. So please stand tight and we will talk to you again. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Aftab. Thanks, Aftab and Afifa and Dee for moderating this session, and the speakers for their presentations, as well as the participants for all their comments and questions. Just letting everyone know that the next two sessions will be the APNIC Open Policy Meeting 1 and the Network Operations session starting at 2:15 Brisbane time. So we have about 10 minutes of break time. The links are available on the conference program page. With that, we will now conclude this session and we will see you in the next one. Thank you all for participating.